productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund, co-founder of Results-Driven Leadership. We provide the knowledge, skills, and tools you need to advance your career and business success. No matter whether you're just getting started or have been running a business for years, we've got the advice, tips, the tools you need to stay ahead of the competition. So let's get into it. Welcome managers, welcome business owners. Everyone knows that having a great team of employees helps make a very successful business. Finding the right people for your team is only half the battle. Once you hire new team members, it's essential to give them the proper training so they can dive into their work with confidence and be successful for you sooner as opposed to later or versus failing. We don't want to avoid that. So in this podcast, we'll discuss some of the tried and true strategies for effectively training new employees. That way, you're going to be able to nip any potential issues in the bud and build your motivated workforce. Now, there was a previous podcast on training, which gave you the overview of training methods, best practices. This podcast is about brand new employees, just for brand new employees. So keep listening. I'll share with you all the training best practices. We'll cover those in a few minutes. But as we get started on assembling your new team and making them super successful, let me state with authority and certainly with experience, you have to start with an effective onboarding program. And as we move through the podcast, we'll also offer you some free tools that will make the onboarding and training a very successful start for your new employees. You're going to be super effective with this stuff. Because for any organization, it can be tough to know where to start with new people. In fact, most companies that contract with us, that we come in, we start doing our initial investigations of where we can help them out. This is almost always, and I say almost because I've got to give everybody a little bit of credit, but in most companies, there is no plan, there's no process for managers to onboard new employees. HR, yeah, sometimes, but not the manager. Two different processes. So in this podcast, we're going to share some of our favorite and proven tips for not only training, but for onboarding. So to start with functional training, let's start with onboarding. And this onboarding program should cover everything from company culture to job responsibilities, to policies, to procedures, all those things. And a well-designed onboarding program will absolutely help new hires feel welcome. They'll reduce the time it takes for them to get up to speed and ensure that you're setting them up for success. And again, this is not an HR onboarding program where they're going through the benefits and signing the new hire paperwork and watching the sexual harassment videos, that sort of stuff. This is the managers. This is a separate onboarding program that the manager must have for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to go through those. But you got to have this process, Mr. and Miss Manager, to introduce your new hire into the organization and the team and to you. This is the time to start building a relationship and get to know your new person. Remember, and I've said this in a lot of different podcasts, people work for people, not for companies. And this is your time to start establishing that relationship, that valued, important, essential relationship you have with your new hire. So this is not something that I encourage you to delegate. The first few days needs to be you and your new employee walking them through these best practices, I should say, for your onboarding program. You must invest the time in what I'm about to share with you. Doing anything less, it's going to set you up for failure. I promise you. And failure being that they just don't work out the way you thought they would, to they just quitting and leaving. And you will never know why, because most people won't tell you the truth. But according to Gallup, most leave because of their boss. So let's go ahead and just be proactive, get in front of this. So in my very strong opinion, one of the single largest contributors to turnover and having ineffective employees, disengaged employees, people that every time you ask them to do, they stick out their hand and want more money because they feel like you should be obligated to them rather than you leading them and wanting them, or them wanting to help you and contribute to the company. Many of these problems that all you managers are complaining about out there, and business owners, about your employees, you don't realize how self-inflicted some of these are. And this doesn't solve everything. No, I'm not saying that. But if you start with this program, with a very good onboarding program, it's a prime opportunity for you to win their hearts and their minds. So don't waste this opportunity. Like I said previously, many, if not most, do. They either delegate this or don't have a program at all. It's haphazard. They're just doing whatever feels right. And they skip a lot of important steps. And I've said it for years. This is where success for new employees, retention of new employees comes from. It comes from the very first hour, the very first day, the very first week of their employment. You blow this, and you're grossly diminishing the likelihood of success for your new hire. And it's up to you to make this go the right way. And the more transparent and detailed you are in this onboarding process in the first few days, the better. Especially if you're onboarding a high S, or stability, on the DISC assessment scale. 68%, according to DISC, 68% of the population is a high S. So you got about a 7 out of 10 chance, unless you're in a very selective group of new hires, you're very likely, 7 out of 10 chance of hiring an S. It's hard not to get them. Doesn't make them bad. They're great employees, but they take, every DISC profile takes a unique approach. And if I've hired an S, I'm prepared to onboard and train them the right way. And if you're not using DISC as part of your hiring process, friends, you should be. It's an amazing tool for you. Every one of my clients use it, but only after they've taken a DISC assessment and they see the value of it. They sit through a debrief with me or one of my other coaches, and they understand that the importance of this tool, the knowledge that it provides about you, and you can then start observing these tendencies, these behavior profiles in others. And if you haven't taken a DISC assessment for yourself, as always, I put a link in the show notes for you to take one. Do it. Take it. Then please do yourself the favor and take time to set up a 1-hour review with you. It's all free. And that's our way of providing value back to all of our fine business mechanic podcast listeners. So back to the high S. I get lost sometimes in that. I really want everybody to do this. So back to the high S. When onboarding a high S, steadiness one of these individuals. According to this, it's important for a manager to create a supportive and structured environment, stating a structure, stability. It's safety. It's all the nuances of the S. And to create a supportive and structured environment, catering to their natural preferences, where you're going to get them bought in, engaged, onboarded, and trained properly. You're going to have to be patient, because high S employees are patient. They're reliable. They're team-oriented. They're very value-driven. They value stability. They value success of their team. They value being able to provide support to others. They love predictability. They love consistency. And again, if I don't know this as a manager onboarding a new employee or even hiring this new employee, you're going to miss some key aspects to how they learn, how they engage, how they're going to start respecting you. And just as important, how I need to be able to communicate with this new high S employee. So here are some key aspects when onboarding a high S. And I'm betting, and I'll win this bet, I'm betting you've never considered these issues before. So I'll just say in advance, you're welcome. Check this out. If you're onboarding a high S, stability, you've got to set very clear expectations, because high S's need specific guidelines. They need detailed expectations for their role, their responsibilities, how to do their job, when to do their job, when to do what their job, when done well, looks like. They thrive in environments where they know what's expected of them. And then 100% of the time, if given all this information, they'll focus on meeting those expectations. Like I said, they are the great employees. They will take your lead. They will follow you. They will do whatever you ask them to do if you ask and show them using the proper methods. Another thing you have to be very aware of with the high S's is you have to introduce change gradually. High S employees may have, likely will have, some resistance to change. So when introducing new tasks or new responsibilities, you have to do so gradually. You've got to allow them time to adapt and become comfortable with new routines. Think about what you're doing right now. You're onboarding and training somebody. That is 100% equal to change. That's where the patience comes in. You can't train them in a day. You can't train them in a week. You can't train them in a very short period of time and expect them just to get it and go figure it out, because they won't, they can't, and you're going to get frustrated. They're going to get frustrated, and you've already broken the chain. You've broken the chain, and now they're disappointed in you, as disappointed as you are in them. So slow it down. Not only when you're managing them, you got to introduce change gradually, but certainly when you're training them and onboarding them. So keep that in mind. ISs also need open communication. You've got to encourage open communication. You've got to draw it out of them. S's tend to keep their thoughts, their ideas, their opinions to themselves. And so you have to create, especially in onboarding, remember, this is about building that initial relationship. They've got to trust you. And so you've got to create a supportive atmosphere where they feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, their concerns, their ideas. They're not likely to ask a lot of questions unless they feel comfortable and safe. And so you have to learn to actively listen, ask open-ended questions that are pointed in a way that require a response. And then you've got to show empathy to those questions. This all builds trust and it builds rapport. So communication is very important. Collaboration. ISs love collaboration. They're team supporters. They love environment where they can be part of a team. They don't necessarily and rarely do want to be the head of a team. They want to be part of a team. They want to contribute to a team. And so they love to collaborate. So you've got to encourage teamwork. You've got to provide that teamwork and show them how they're going to be working with a team in the early stages of onboarding. Then pair them with a colleague, a buddy, a mentor who will complement their skills, will complement their working styles. And by you being empathetic, being supportive, giving them one more person that is not the boss to support them, they're going to feel way more connected, way more engaged in their work right away. Told you never thought about these things. And now let's get into how you need to train them, training and supporting them. You've got to provide very comprehensive, detailed training. You must have very detailed resources and with ongoing support to help them develop their skills and grow in their role. They appreciate clear guidance. They must have clear guidance. And if they have a question, they have to know where to go access to help when needed. It could be a lead, it could be a procedure, it could be you, but they have to feel safe in going to whatever resource they need to in order to get their answers, because they will freeze. They would rather not do something than to do it incorrectly because they don't want to let down the team. They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to disappoint you. So be careful with that. Also, when hiring, onboarding, and training a high S, they need recognition. They need feedback. Remember, this is about safety, building this relationship, building this connection. So acknowledge what you're seeing right away in the way of positive contributions. Offer constructive feedback. Celebrate their achievements, especially early on. IS employees, they really value appreciation and reassurance. That builds courage, that builds confidence, and that's going to help you boost their motivation and job satisfaction. Stability, high S. They love a consistent routine. Help them establish a consistent work routine that will provide a sense of predictability and stability. High S's love repetitive work. They love to do the same thing the same way all day, every day. They're in their glory. When they know exactly what's expected of them, then they can do it the same way all day, every day. And I'm going to talk about if you're a different disc style than a high S as the boss, which you likely are, you're not recognizing this. And it's frustrating you, and it's frustrating them. So there's got to be consistency. There must be procedures. There's got to be standard operating procedures and processes so they feel safe that they know what to do. And then they'll repeat it perfectly every single time. But you've got to get them there. You've got to provide it for them. They perform best in a very structured environment where they can focus on their task without, and this is the other bane to their existence, without unnecessary disruptions. They like to start something and finish something without interruption. And many of you bosses, you managers out there, you business owners out there, you're not taking this into consideration, whether you're managing them, training them, or onboarding them. They like seamless approaches to getting things done. And so you've got to be really careful about the disruptions, interrupting their workflow. Start and finish. Keep that in mind. Moving on. They like a work-life balance. They're very family-oriented. So you've got to ensure that high S has a healthy work-life balance. They're often very dependable. Very dependable. and may be less likely to voice any concerns about workload or stress. They don't freely offer their thoughts or opinions. So just be proactive. Know it when I'm hiring them. I must provide them any way around any potential issues and promote a balanced approach to their work. Just know it up front because they won't complain until they quit. See what I mean? This is the value of knowing your DISC profiles, especially when hiring, onboarding, and training. And by taking all these factors into account, a manager can create an onboarding process that supports not only the high S's, but the high D's, the high I's, the high C's. They all need variations of this. D's and I's are far easier because they need less detail than a high S. They will onboard quicker. They will get up to speed faster because they tend to figure things out on their own because they're very risk tolerant. S's, almost no risk tolerance. So this fosters, by doing it the right way with your high S's, this fosters engagement and sets them up for success. Again, regardless of their DISC profile, have the way that's going to best suit their behavior needs. Now let's pause and think for a minute, because this is really important. Pay attention to this. If you take nothing else out of this podcast today, I need you to please, I beg you, use DISC. Take the DISC, get the debrief from us. And I don't do that to make any money. It's free. I go to links asking everybody to take it. Many do. I think close to 200 people have done it so far this month. We love it. But very few are taking advantage of a free 1-hour debrief by one of our very experienced coaches, sometimes me, sometimes Eric, sometimes John. But you also need to know you. It's important for you to know your style, because if going to the links that I just described for hiring, training, onboarding a high S is not something you're interested in doing, that you're just rolling your eyes and saying, I'm out, Vaughn, no way I'm doing all that. And I get you, because I'm a high ID. Detail is not my friend. Routine is not my friend. But I know I want to be successful. In all the years I hired and onboarded new people, I learned every single time onboarding a new employee how important this part was. And if going to this detail in high S doesn't fit your style, doesn't fit your management style, your leadership style, because they're very needy of your time and attention, and they don't work independently, don't hire them. Just don't, unless you're willing to make the adaptation. If you're willing to buckle down and get this done, or at least have somebody supporting you with this, that they'll provide you with the detail you need, and you just have to follow the bouncing ball to get this done. The amount of commitment and detail may not be a fit for your DISC profile, but somebody's going to have to do it. You can't delegate this. So if you can't delegate it, don't hire them. How do you know you're going to hire them? We can use DISC as a pre-employment step. Works like a charm. Almost every single one of my 80-something clients, our 80-something clients, utilizes DISC. And after they've started with it, they can't imagine ever hiring anybody any other way. It's that important to them. They get the value out of it. So please keep, and I dwell on the S, friends, because 7 out of 10 are likely to be an S. And if you aren't willing, you think I'm foolish, I'm being overbearing, whatever, about this onboarding process, even before I start training a new employee, if you dismiss any of this, and that's okay, that's your prerogative, I'm going to tell you, you're likely to be rehiring that position in less than a year. Not a threat, that's a promise. But and always remember this is you got a 7 out of 10 chance. And most managers are a high D or a high I. That's just how people fall into it. That's who's attracted to leadership and management, the D's and the I's. And that sets up a potential conflict in not only how you onboard somebody, but certainly communication styles. Your communication style, natural communication style, may not be very effective with a high S, because high D managers are known for their assertiveness, their goal-oriented nature, their preference for fast-paced environments, get things done yesterday. They're likely to face challenges with onboarding a high S. I'll even go so far as sharing some of the common mistakes high D, because I see it. These are the mistakes until they learn otherwise that high D managers have been making or make when onboarding and training a new employee. They overlook the need for clear expectations, because high D managers, they just assume new hires will quickly adapt to their roles just like they did. High S employees need very clear guidelines. D's just figure it out. I's just figure it out. And failing to provide this structure will lead to confusion and frustration. But the problem is the S's won't tell you. They don't complain. And they'll just quit. Quietly quit. High D managers push for quick results. You're very action-oriented, very deadline-driven. And you normally expect immediate results. And you can place undue pressure on these high S employees who, as I said previously, they prefer a more steady and methodical approach, and time and patience. Patience is not your virtue if you're a high D. You don't want to cause all this stress early on with your high S's that you create. And if I don't know that's what I am, then I'm doing it unknowingly. You're setting yourself up for failure. And you're also setting them up for a highly reduced level of job satisfaction. Also, you high Ds, you may neglect the relationship building part. They often focus on tasks and goals. The high Ds love tasks and goals, getting stuff done. They love their to-do list. They love getting things done. They love to drive for achievement. And you can, because you're such a workaholic, you have such a high level of initiative and work ethic, you can often inadvertently overlook the importance of relationship building. It's not that important to you, but it's super important to the I's and the S's that you employ. You've got to provide this supportive work environment. Neglecting that aspect is going to lead to disengagement and them quietly quitting you. IDs will often be a little light, little insufficient in communication, because high Ds don't need a high level of detail, of guidance. You're very independent. And you often expect new hires to be just as self-sufficient as you are. However, 7 out of 10 of your employees, they appreciate, require open communication, and lots of it. They need a supportive atmosphere where they can ask a lot of questions. And I know you high Ds get frustrated, but God, this person does nothing but ask questions. They ask the same question over and over again. Guess whose fault that is? It's redundant, or it's not redundant. It's rhetorical. We'll call that rhetorical. IDs, you love change, and you can change on a dime. You love change, but you love change because it's going to improve things. Remember, S's, they don't like change. They like finding a way and doing it the right way repetitively. But you high Ds, you're very comfortable with rapid change. The S's need more time to adjust. And if you expect them to adjust, figure it out, and move at the pace you do, decrease productivity, you're breaking the relationship with them. Also, this is very common. You high Ds, again, very independent. You don't need a lot of collaboration. You really don't. And this is no way derogatory. Most managers, most leaders are a high D. But you figure things out on your own. You're very independent. So you don't often consult with others when making decisions or figuring things out. You don't need it. So you got to be real careful, because the high S's, they thrive in a collaborative environment where you get them involved. This is an engagement thing. Their opinions need to be put into the pool of collective knowledge. That makes it safe for them. It makes it rewarding for them. You don't need it, but it's not about you. It's about them. It's about your employees. It's about the people who work for you, not about you. Without them following you, you're a failure. You're going to come up very short of your potential. You got to change and adapt your mindset, because failing to create opportunities for teamwork will absolutely hinder your new hire's ability to integrate and excel. And the last thing I'll mention here is, you have a tendency, you can take on a big load and handle it. You're good with stress. You're a workaholic. But with these high S's you got, you must avoid overloading them with responsibilities and training them with too much too soon. Too many tasks, too many responsibilities, too much information too soon will lead to stress and burnout. And again, these high S's are very unlikely to voice their concerns until they quit. And again, you'll never know why. This is why, friends, because they'll tell Gallup, they'll tell the surveyors this. They won't tell you in the exit interview, but they'll tell a stranger. They'll tell Glassdoor. So if you think you're a high D or want to know if you're a high D, take the damn DISC assessment. And that way you're going to avoid making some of these common mistakes. You need to focus and understand on accommodating the needs for all your employees, but especially high S's. So I encourage you, again, take this DISC, take it for free. I've got a link in the show notes. It's this onboarding part. I cannot overemphasize what a magical moment it is. And that is when your employees decide to either stay, get engaged, or become disengaged. And it's all about you imprinting the right impression in these early days and ongoing that will last the duration of their careers. If you want to improve your retention, your success, one, know your DISCO. Two, have a solid onboarding program. I mean, again, we haven't even gotten to the training part, I know. But you've got to set them up for success. And this onboarding program can be as short as 3 months. Yeah. See, I talked to you about patience. This is, again, a manager's onboarding, not HR's onboarding. And some companies have an onboarding program and check in and that sort of thing for 6 months. So buy into it. And if you're interested in learning more about how to onboard somebody, or at least have a path to integrate your new employee, I've got a tool for you. It's going to make you very less susceptible to the factors that often result in them leaving your company or being unsuccessful or unproductive or just being average. You got to give them a real chance. So I'm going to give you a free tool, as I often do during the podcast. There's a link in the show notes for our new employee orientation checklist. By using this clear, formal checklist, it's all laid out for you. It's very detailed. It's all laid out day by day. And by using this, you're going to be able to strive to have your new employees quickly thinking of themselves as part of the organization's community. That's what you want. You want engagement, integration, feeling part of the team. And that's going to make them a very valuable long-term employee. So use the show notes, go to the show notes and download our new employee orientation checklist. You'll be glad you did. There's lots of important things in there, like planning the first day of work, providing clarity and expectations, which I've gone on about, reviewing the job description and what's their expectations. It's all in there. And by the way, there's 20 checklist items on there. That's just a few. That's 3 or 4 that I just mentioned. It's a lot in there. There's a lot to it. A lot of meat in that free tool. So now, moving on, let's get down to training them. As I shared in a previous podcast, blog, it was on Medium, it was on Flipboard. I think Forbes is picking this article up. Entrepreneur called me this morning. We're negotiating about me doing this on one of their podcasts. Begin by knowing the 4 tenets of teaching. And I'll briefly go through them. The 4 steps, the 4 essential steps to teaching. You've got to tell them. You got to tell them what they need to know. You got to present information to them clearly and concisely. It needs to be in written form. You should have some visual aids around that. You got to use clear, concise language. Avoid your acronyms and your jargon or technical terms early on. And if you use them, slow your butt down and make sure you explain those. And again, high S's will just let that go by. And they'll go home and they'll be frustrated and they'll tell their significant other, or their roommate, they talked about more things than I didn't understand today. I don't know how to stop that. Slow it down. Explain things in detail. Use visual aids. Break down information into manageable chunks. Not too much too soon. Spread it out. Because this is a rabbit and hare thing. If you treat training like a car wash, you drive in, you drive out, you're trained, you'll fail every time. Training is a slow, methodical process. So be prepared to take the time. Then you want to show them. You told them, and now you're showing them. You've got to make sure they understand the information visually. They need to watch someone else do it. They need to watch someone demonstrating these skills or techniques. That may be another employee, maybe a counterpart, maybe you. It could be a video. It's all crucial. They need to see somebody demonstrating the skills or techniques slowly and clearly, using visual aids to illustrate all the steps, maybe a checklist, and making sure that we explain each step as we go. And for sure, allow time for them to ask questions. But please ask questions in a way that's going to actually ask for their questions in a way that's actually going to get you questions. The worst way to ask for questions, do you have any questions? 99% of the time, the response is, nope. What did you think of that, Sally? What are your thoughts? Have you done that before? How would you have done that? What about that made the most sense to you? What part is still confusing to you? It's okay. Everybody gets confused with things. How do you see yourself adapting to that? Ask open-ended questions that are very pointed to get and require a response. Then the third step, have them do it. You've told them, you've shown them. Now you're going to have them start demonstrating what you just told them and show them. They've got to practice. We learned 80%, 75% of our retention. Retention of the skills or the knowledge you're teaching them comes from them doing it. So it's super important that you allow your employees to get hands-on experience, to develop the skills, to get comfortable with it. But it needs to be provided in a safe and supportive environment. Please don't have them practice on your customers. Have something set up that they can do it in private, whether it's learning to run a cash register or build an Excel sheet or to answer the phone or to sell something or whatever it is. Provide a safe and supportive environment for them to practice without judgment. And like I mentioned earlier, start with simple tasks and then gradually build up the more complex ones. That requires you to have a well thought out training program in writing. So start with the simple, build on it, just practice all along the way. And then as they're practicing, you or whoever's training them can provide feedback, constructive feedback, guidance to help them do it right for you. Allow them to make mistakes. It's okay, but help them learn from those mistakes. And then the fourth step, you've told them, you showed them, you have them do it, give them feedback. That's the final step. How are they doing? How are they getting it? It's crucial that this new employee understand where they're doing very well and where they need to improve. And you need to be open and honest with them in an encouraging way. And some tips around that are being specific and detailed. Make sure you focus on the strengths and areas for improvement. Balance your feedback. Be constructive, be encouraging, and give it regularly. Don't wait till the end of the week and then bombard them with everything you've been saving up. Just in time, right away, give them that feedback. In my experience, there's four steps to it. Tell them, show them, have them do it, provide them feedback. In my experience, most managers only train using tell them and show them. Why? Because they're high D or they're high I. They don't need the details, and it's fast. But it's also highly ineffective. So slow it down, become methodical, have a checklist, plan it out in detail. If you don't have this, you're setting yourself up for a lot of headache. Because all four of those tenets must be included, even if it takes you additional time and tools. And maybe if I'm a high D and I, I'm going to find my high S or C team member to help me get this detailed out, because detail's not your strength. And also that last part, give them feedback. If you struggle with giving feedback, being comfortable and confident giving feedback the right way, the way that's constructive and encouraging, that's going to actually get you what you want out of providing somebody feedback, you need to pick up my new book, A Roadmap to Difficult Conversations. It's on Amazon and it's free. And I put a link in the show notes for you to go get your copy of it. Please read it. Leave me a review. I'd really appreciate that. That'll help me move a few more. It's just hit Amazon. Check it out, download it. It's a Kindle book. Put it right on your phone, put it on your pad. It'll give you a whole tool, step-by-step approach to having difficult conversations with folks. You won't be disappointed. So here's some more best practices that I know work. When training new employees, you need to focus, one, on foundational skills. They're just starting, and it's crucial for them to build a foundation. So again, you need to think about your training process, the steps, and how you're going to build this. Start with the basics and cover the basics of the job, such as how to use the tools, where to find the tools, the equipment, the software, whatever. Don't overwhelm them. Super important that new hires understand the fundamentals before going to more advanced skills. Plan that out. And then use a hands-on approach. They're likely to learn better through actually doing it. Let them shadow, watch somebody else, then have whoever they're shadowing either provide them the real life examples or time to actually do it themselves. That's going to help them get comfortable with not only the peer that's showing them, but their surroundings. It builds confidence. You need to set clear expectations. You must clearly communicate what is expected of the new employee in terms of learning. What you expect them to learn in the first week, the second week, the third week. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, have a test, have a role play, have an exam of some sort, so you can see, you can determine, even if it's a simple 10-question true false test, so you can determine whether they're retaining this information. And there's a subtle other motivation for giving them tests is you're able to give them feedback. And if they know that they're going to have to pass a test each week to advance to the next week, they're much more likely to pay attention to this stuff and ask questions because they want to pass the test. But they have to understand what good looks like. And as I've mentioned 3 or 4 times now, the training program has to be structured. Should be designed to cover all the essential topics, but focus on building from the foundation. It also needs to provide context. It's essential, especially in the early stages of their engagement with you, for new employees to understand how their role fits and aligns to the organization, and how important it is as they do their jobs, fulfill their jobs successfully, how it contributes to the company's overall goals. And if you have not been doing that, please add it into your repertoire. Super important. Companies who have aligned employees are 2,000. That's Fortune magazine. That's not Ball making some number up. 2,000% more successful than their competitors when their employees are pulling their weight, knowing how what they do contributes to the company's success. You're getting them aligned. You're tying them to something important. I just read an article this morning how important this is. It's being able to learn and grow, and then it's money. Those are the top 3 things. It's important for them to also be assigned a mentor or a buddy. That'll help them feel more comfortable. Because really, let's face it, they are less likely to ask you a dumb question. That was a finger quote. They're much more likely to ask a peer, somebody working with them. So involve that in your training. Make sure you have a mentor or a buddy program as part of your training. And that person can provide a safe environment for clear guidance, support, answering questions, and help them get acclimated to not only their job, but the company culture, how we do things around here. And don't be shy about using a variety of training methods. Be creative. Include e-learning. It is amazing how many times I've come across managers really frustrated with not having the right tools to train their people. They wish they had this, they wish they had that. And almost every time I say, does that software offer training? I've never looked. Check it out. Does it offer training on YouTube? Often it does, but they never thought about that. Very often software, many tools that we use in the workplace today either offer the training as part of the service or it's on YouTube. My God, it's one of the best tools ever. On top of job shadowing, practice, the buddy, all that other stuff. And then please make sure you're catching them do it right. Part of this training, whether it's the buddy providing them, mentor providing them, but especially you providing them recognition and feedback when you see them doing it well. It needs to be positive. It needs to be encouraging. It needs to be constructive. Watch your D, because you don't worry so much about empathy. You're just blunt. You just say what needs to be said and think that nobody else's feelings should be hurt because yours don't. Other people have feelings. Be careful with that, you high Ds. Go take the test to see what you are. And then I want to also, in conclusion here towards the end, make sure you structure your training to be just-in-time training. What is that? First, remember the 4 tenets of teaching, which includes have them do it. Please don't front load your training. Don't teach them a month's worth of training, and then 4 weeks later is when they're actually going to start practicing or doing that part of their job. Super important for new employees that you train it as they're going to start using it. That decreases the learning curve and it helps them to understand quickly what you need them to do. You'll reduce them feeling overwhelmed. It will absolutely improve their performance. Because of the retention factor of it, you're going to teach it, then they're going to start doing it, and then practicing. And they're going to learn in the way that works for them in bite-sized pieces. And it's going to save you time and money. By providing just-in-time training, you're going to save a ton of money on training costs, because do you really want to have to train them multiple times on the same thing? I bet you're doing it now. And I bet you've said before, I've trained you on this. How many times do I have to train you? Well, it's likely because you didn't train them using this method. Give it out to them in small chunks, just when they're going to start practicing. Build, not all at once. Don't try to get all of it done in a few days. Must be patient with it. And then every now and then I encourage you to sit back, collaborate with either new employees or other team members, and evaluate this training program. It's essential to your success, friends. It's essential having a great, effective training program for new hires. It's going to set you up for greatness. And you can evaluate these programs either through surveys or focus groups, or you can look at data analysis and then make adjustments accordingly. Always looking for continuous improvement. You want to keep getting better and better if you can. So evaluate your training program regularly. A great best practice. So to wrap this thing up, the training approach must be tailored to the specific needs of your new hires. You need to know their DISC profile. And while new hires require this foundational training, don't forget your current employees. You need to keep some of these things in mind for advanced training as well. If they need a refresher to keep their skills up to date, keep all these things in mind. And the hands-on part of it is super important. So thanks for listening. Please visit our website for more information, rdltraining.com. That's Romeo Delta Lima training.com. I really appreciate everybody listening to the show. Please keep up the good work. I'm glad you're here working on your leadership skills, your management skills, become a better leader and manager. Love your loyalty and your listenership. Keep up the great work, y'all, and we'll talk to you again soon.